Today we're going to learn how to plant some seeds. So first, you want to know what you're going to plant. So for this, I'm planting basil. I have two different varieties here of basil that we're going to plant today. And first, you want to take a look at your seed packet. So here it says different things like how many days it takes to sprout, the ideal temperature, how deep you need to plant it, things like this. So this is really a wealth of information. You really want to look at this and read this before you plant your seed. We're going to do two types of seed starting today. We're going to do our seeds in our cells, and then we're going to use this one and we're going to do soil blocking. So first we're going to start with our cells. I have my soil over here. You could use a bag of seed starting mix, which is perfectly acceptable. I made my own because I knew I was going to need a lot of it. But if you go to the store, they sell bags of pre-made mix that you can use. So we're going to take our container and then we're just going to go into my container and we're going to fill up to the top with the seed starting mix. Now, my seed starting mix is pretty wet, only because it needs to be super wet in order to do the soil blocking method, which we're going to do next. But if you've taken your soil out of the bag and it's dry, you just take your bottle from the dollar store and fill it up with some water, and you spray and make sure that your soil is nice and moist for your seeds. Then you want to take your handy dandy chopstick, or you can use a finger or whatever you have, and you're going to make a hole right in the middle. The seed packet says 1/4 of an inch deep, so that's how deep you're going to go. You're just going to estimate. All right, so now I've made all of my holes, and then you're going to take your seeds and you're going to put them in the hole. Now, basil seeds are tiny, and you're going to find that with a lot of seeds. They're very, very small, so it's not easy to put just one in each hole. But I actually don't recommend putting one in each hole. I recommend putting at least 2 in each hole, so that if one doesn't germinate or doesn't sprout, then at least you have a backup in case you need it. I also recommend planting in a couple more cells than you need, just in case you have some extra. So when it comes time to move them out into the garden, if maybe 1 or 2 die or they don't sprout or whatever, you have backups. Okay, so we've put basil in all of these, and we're gonna put these back in the seed packet. And then I'm gonna put my glove back on because this is wet. And you are just going to get a little bit more dirt, put it right over the top, and then you're just going to make sure that those holes are covered. Okay, so now that you have your seeds, I highly recommend that you get anything that you could use as a label. You could use popsicle sticks, you could use, these are pretty cheap online, just so you know what you're planting. So you want to stick that right in to one of your cells, and then you want to put something over it that's going to keep the moisture and the humidity in here, because that's going to help keep it nice and moist while the seeds germinate. So if you buy a kit like this online, it comes with the domes. If you don't have a dome, just get some plastic wrap and put it right over the top, and that should keep the moisture in. And then all you're going to do is let this sit like this until you start to see little seedlings. And there you go, you've planted your seeds. How easy is that? So if you are soil blocking, you're gonna have one of these. This is called a soil blocker, and this kind of gets rid of the need to have the cells. So you're gonna take your soil or your seed starting mix, and you are gonna jam it in there like this. Make sure that it totally gets full, and you're going to level it out and make sure that it's flat, because if it's not flat, your blocks are not going to be flat, and that's not going to be great. So You want to make sure it looks like that. And then, let me move the camera. You've got your container here, and you just pull up on the soil blocker and you take it out. And now you've got your soil blocks. And if you see, they each have holes in them already, so you don't even need to put the holes in them. So I'm gonna fill the rest of this and then we'll plant our seeds. So in this one, I'm gonna put a bunch of lettuces, and I'm probably gonna have room for some tomatoes and some peppers. So we're gonna start with our lettuce. Take the seed packet. These seeds are also pretty small. See those? So again, you're gonna take at least 2 seeds and you're gonna put them in the hole. I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna do 1 row of this lettuce. And then once you are done putting your seeds in the hole, you're just gonna take a little bit more of your seed starting mix, or the seed starting mix that you made, and you're gonna just put a little bit over and cover up your holes. Once you've covered up your holes with more soil, you're gonna take your label. This is my lettuce label, and you're just gonna stick it right there. If you plant multiple things in the same row, you might want to put one in every seed block, but since I know this whole row is lettuce, I'm just gonna leave it like that. All right, so I have put all of my seeds in here and I covered it with soil, and I put all my labels in to make sure that I know what is what. And I don't have a humidity dome for this one, so I'm just gonna take some plastic wrap and go right over it and make sure that I've covered everything, because the humidity is going to help these sprout. So we've got our plastic wrap. Now we're gonna go put them on our shelf, and in a couple days you're gonna check on it and make sure that it's still moist. If it's drying out a little bit, you wanna get your spray bottle and just make sure you keep spraying the tops, but this should cover it. So I have gone ahead and put these on our seed starting shelf. If you'll see here, I put a heat mat down that'll keep the soil nice and toasty to try and get as many of the seeds to germinate as possible. I do not have the light on because you don't want to have the light on while the seeds are germinating. Once they do sprout, you want to take this off and the humidity dome off, and you want to turn that light on. But in the meantime, we will wait and see if we get some sprouts. If that information was useful to you, please give me a like and a follow, and follow for more homesteadish tips.